Picture this. A few years ago, the entire world watched as a nation was suddenly excommunicated from the global financial system. Overnight, its banks couldn't send or receive money for international trade. It wasn't an act of military invasion. It was an act of economic warfare. The weapon? A single obscure but all-powerful messaging system called SWIFT. For 50 years, SWIFT, the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, has been the silent, secure backbone of global capitalism, linking over 11,500 financial institutions. If you move money from New York to Tokyo, it uses SWIFT. But that power, wielded as a weapon, has created an enormous problem for the rest of the world. And now, a bloc of nations led by Russia, China, and India are launching their counterattack. They are the expanded BRICS group, representing over 45% of the world's population, and they are building something called BRICS Pay, an entirely new financial architecture designed to bypass SWIFT, bypass the US dollar, and break the West's chokehold on global commerce. This isn't a simple banking story. This is the opening volley in the next global currency war. Today, we're mapping this conflict. We'll dive into the terrifying power of SWIFT, unpack the technology behind the new BRICS alternative, and determine whether this is the moment the US dollar's dominance truly begins to crack. Stay tuned, because the future of your financial security might be decided by which of these two messaging systems wins. Let's start with the undisputed incumbent champion. SWIFT was founded in 1973, replacing the incredibly slow, error-prone telex system. Its function is crucial but simple. SWIFT does not move money. It sends secure, standardized instructions for moving money. Think of it like the global post office for banking. Every bank has a unique address, the BIC or SWIFT code. When a German bank wants to send euros to a Brazilian bank, SWIFT sends a standardized, encrypted message telling the German bank to debit and the Brazilian bank to credit. This reliability and standardization are what make global trade possible. SWIFT's power comes from its massive network effect. With over 11,500 institutions connected across 200 countries, you have to be on SWIFT if you want to be a serious player in international finance. It's the highway everybody drives on. Now, here is the critical part. While SWIFT is a neutral, member-owned cooperative based in Belgium, it is overseen by the central banks of the G10 countries, and crucially, a vast majority of its transactions involve the US dollar. This means that almost every major global transfer must, at some point, clear through a bank that falls under US jurisdiction. This setup transformed SWIFT into the most potent geopolitical weapon the West possesses. If SWIFT is the financial network, then the ability to cut a country off is the financial nuclear option. And once that weapon was used, the rules of the game changed forever. The motivation for BRICS Pay is simple: fear of sanctions. The West, led by the US, has proven that it is willing to use its financial dominance, not just tariffs or trade blocs, to impose geopolitical will. The playbook was established years ago when Iran was disconnected from the SWIFT network in two major waves, largely crippling its ability to export oil and participate in global commerce. It was a demonstration of absolute financial isolation. Then came the Russian excommunication in 2022. When Russia invaded Ukraine, the US and its allies pulled the ultimate lever, excluding key Russian banks from SWIFT. This wasn't just an inconvenience. It meant Russian exporters couldn't easily receive foreign currency for their oil and gas, and the Russian central bank saw hundreds of billions of dollars in foreign currency reserves frozen. This moment sent a shockwave through every nation that might someday find itself on the wrong side of Washington. Foreign policy, a list that includes BRICS members like China, Iran, and even potentially India or Brazil over future geopolitical disagreements. The message was clear: if you rely on the US dollar and the SWIFT network, your financial sovereignty is an illusion. For BRICS, the development of an alternative went from a long-term goal to an immediate existential priority. But you can't build an alternative overnight. The BRICS strategy is not about one single system. It's about a three-pronged incremental assault on the dollar's hegemony. So how do you fight a giant like SWIFT? You don't build another SWIFT. Instead, you create a complex, layered system designed to chip away at its dominance. The first part of the BRICS strategy is all about national messaging systems. Years before the 2022 sanctions, both Russia and China were already building their own domestic alternatives. Russia launched its System for Transfer of Financial Messages, or SPFS. China created the Cross-Border Interbank Payment System, or CIPS. Initially, these were just local networks. But after the sanctions, they went into overdrive. Russia began aggressively connecting foreign banks to its SPFS, especially from friendly nations. China's CIPS, which settles payments in yuan, saw its transaction volume surge. The first step for BRICS was to link these individual national systems together, creating a web of communication that doesn't need to go through Belgium or New York. The second part of the strategy is the currency itself. A new messaging system is useless if you still have to settle every trade in US dollars. This is where de-dollarization comes in. BRICS countries are now aggressively promoting trade in their own local currencies. China pays for Russian oil in yuan, India buys Russian goods in rupees. Brazil and China have a deal to conduct trade directly in yuan and reais. Each of these bilateral agreements creates a small crack in the dollar's armor. It's a slow, grinding process, but the goal is clear: reduce dependency on the dollar, trade by trade. This reduces the risk of US sanctions and also lowers transaction costs by cutting out the middleman, the US banking system. So you have a new messaging network and you're using your own currencies. But what holds it all together? That's the final, most ambitious piece. This brings us to the core of the new system, BRICS Pay. This isn't just one app. It's a unified payment platform designed to integrate the financial systems of all BRICS member nations. Think of it as a bridge connecting different payment methods. A merchant in South Africa could accept a payment from a tourist using China's WeChat Pay, a business person from Brazil using their local PIX system, or a Russian using a Mir card. BRICS Pay handles the conversion and settlements seamlessly, without ever touching the dollar or SWIFT. On a consumer level, it means easier travel and e-commerce. But its real power is at the wholesale level. The ultimate vision for BRICS Pay is a platform for settling large-scale international trade using a basket of BRICS currencies, or even a brand new common digital currency backed by assets like gold or other commodities. While a full-fledged BRICS currency is still years away due to political hurdles, the technological foundation is being built right now with BRICS Pay, powered by technologies like blockchain and central bank digital currencies. It's an attempt to build a completely parallel financial universe. So the big question, will it work? Can BRICS Pay and its associated systems actually dethrone SWIFT and the US dollar? The answer is complicated. SWIFT's biggest advantage is its incumbency. It's trusted, standardized, and deeply embedded everywhere. For a bank in a neutral country like Switzerland or Singapore, leaving SWIFT for an unproven, politically motivated alternative is a massive risk. The network effect is a powerful moat. Second, the US dollar is not just used for trade. It's the world's primary reserve currency. Central banks globally hold trillions of dollars for stability. Shifting away from that requires a level of trust in currencies like the yuan or rupee that simply isn't there yet. Furthermore, the BRICS nations themselves are not a perfectly unified bloc. India and China have significant border disputes and economic competition. Will India be comfortable in a financial system where China's yuan is the dominant currency? These internal rivalries could severely slow down the project. However, the momentum is undeniably on the side of the challengers. Every time the US uses sanctions, it pushes more countries to look for alternatives. The expansion of BRICS to include major energy producers like Saudi Arabia and the UAE adds immense financial weight to the bloc. The technology is also a key factor. Blockchain and digital currencies offer a way to leapfrog the legacy banking system entirely, creating a system that is potentially faster, cheaper, and harder to sanction. The global financial landscape is clearly fracturing. We're moving from a unipolar, dollar-centric world to a multipolar one with competing financial blocs. The West centered on the dollar and SWIFT, and the BRICS bloc coalescing around their own currencies and platforms like BRICS Pay. For the average person, this might seem distant, but the outcome will have real-world consequences. It could affect the value of your savings, the cost of imported goods, and the balance of global power for decades to come. This isn't just a battle of technology. It's a battle of trust, influence, and the future of money itself. The currency war has begun, and the world is holding its breath to see who will win. The BRICS vision isn't about creating a giant centralized SWIFT clone. That would just mean swapping one master for another. Instead, A strategy is all about interoperability, linking powerful national systems together to create a decentralized, more resilient network. Let's look at the three biggest technical players in this BRICS alliance. First up, China's CIPS, or Cross-Border Interbank Payment System. The goal here is pretty clear. CIPS is China's main tool for internationalizing its currency, the yuan. Since launching in 2015, it's been processing trillions of yuan annually, fueled by China's massive trade surplus. But here's the paradox. CIPS still relies heavily on SWIFT for messaging in many transactions, so it's not a true bypass just yet. Next, we have Russia's SPFS, the System for Transfer of Financial Messages. This was developed as a direct response to the threat of sanctions back in 2014. It's Russia's domestic version of SWIFT. While it's much smaller, it is fully operational. Russia is now actively working to connect SPFS directly with central banks in friendly countries like Iran and Belarus, creating direct communication channels that sidestep the Western system. Then there's the retail revolution, led by India's UPI and Brazil's PIX. These aren't direct SWIFT rivals. They are instant payment systems for real-time, low-cost retail payments within their own borders. The core idea of BRICS Pay is to link these national systems together seamlessly. Imagine a tourist from China using their local app to pay a merchant in Rio. The transaction settles instantly, in their respective currencies, yuan and real. This cuts out the US dollar, bypasses SWIFT, and makes cross-border retail payments cheap and fast. The immediate goal isn't to replace SWIFT for massive corporate transfers. It's to capture the retail and small business payment layer, building a parallel system from the ground up. This brings us to the most complex challenge: currency. You can build the road with BRICS Pay, but you still need a common vehicle to drive on it. This entire war against SWIFT is fundamentally a war against the US dollar. Dollar is the world's reserve currency, used in over 80% of global trade. You could send a message on BRICS Pay, but if the final settlement still has to happen in dollars, you're still under US jurisdiction. So, BRICS has two paths to true financial independence, and both are incredibly difficult. Path 1 is bilateral local currency settlement. The strategy is simple: trade with each other using your own currencies. Russia sells oil to India for rupees, and India then uses those rupees to buy Chinese goods. This is already happening. Russia reports that nearly 90% of its trade within the BRICS bloc is now done in national currencies. But there's a big problem. This creates massive imbalances. If China sells way more to Brazil than it buys, Brazil ends up holding a huge pile of yuan. What can they do with it? It's not easily used to buy products from Europe or pay off dollar-denominated debt. Path 2 is the unified BRICS unit, a distant dream for now. The idea is to create a single, non-political trade settlement unit, not a physical currency. It would be backed by a basket of commodities like gold and oil, and used only for clearing trade between BRICS members. But the reality is, this is full of hurdles. China wants to promote the yuan. India wants to promote the rupee. Creating a neutral unit means sacrificing national ambition, which is a tough sell. And who would control a BRICS central bank? Given the tensions between members like India and China, a joint monetary authority is a political non-starter for now. So, for the immediate future, BRICS Pay is a system for local currency trade, not a vehicle for a new unified currency. It's a pragmatic evolution, not a monetary revolution. Now, let's compare the systems head-to-head. Let's be honest about the competitive landscape. SWIFT's biggest weakness is the speed and cost of its traditional banking model. Routing a payment through 5 intermediary banks takes days and costs a fortune. SWIFT is reliable, but it's slow and expensive. On the other hand, BRICS Pay's biggest weakness is liquidity and adoption. It needs billions in local currency swap lines and years to build the network and trust that SWIFT has established over 5 decades. If countries outside of BRICS don't join, it just remains a regional club. The most likely short-term outcome is coexistence. SWIFT will keep the high-value dollar-denominated financial traffic, while BRICS Pay captures the rapidly growing, instant payment, local currency trade within the global south. It's a chipping away, not an instant takeover. But the biggest consequence of this war isn't just about money. It's about the erosion of trust in the system that has governed the world since the 1940s. The creation of BRICS Pay is a clear signal that the world is moving toward financial multipolarity. For decades, the US dollar's power was built on two things: the sheer size of the U.S. economy, and the global trust that its financial infrastructure was a neutral tool for commerce. But that trust started to erode. When the U.S. and its allies used the SWIFT network to enforce sanctions, they prioritized short-term geopolitical goals over the long-term stability of the system. Every sanction sends a powerful signal to every central bank around the world. We must find an alternative. This fear has accelerated the adoption of systems like China's CIPS and Russia's SPFS, and now their integration into a unified BRICS Pay system. This isn't just a financial experiment. It's a fundamental shift in global power dynamics. The expanded BRICS group now includes major energy exporters like Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Think about what that means. If oil and gas trade starts to settle in Chinese yuan or Indian rupees through BRICS Pay, the global need to hold US dollars for energy payments will plummet. This is the ultimate de-dollarization threat. For the developing world, the most beneficial outcome is simply having a choice. BRICS Pay won't destroy SWIFT overnight, but it will create real competition. This will force SWIFT to become cheaper, faster, and more politically neutral in how it applies sanctions. Competition always breeds efficiency, and that's a huge win for global commerce. This currency war isn't a single, dramatic battle. It's a long, slow process of diversification and de-risking away from a single point of failure. So let's recap. We started by exploring the undeniable, weaponized power of SWIFT. We saw how the fear of being cut off from the global financial system pushed a critical mass of emerging economies to build a complex, decentralized alternative. This new system is built on the shoulders of existing national payment triumphs, like India's UPI and China's CIPS. The SWIFT versus BRICS Pay conflict is really a microcosm of the 21st century's most defining geopolitical trend, the transition from a unipolar, US-dominated world to a multipolar, economically distributed one. So what does the future hold for SWIFT? It will likely remain the gold standard for secure, high-value transfers for a long time. But it's being forced to innovate. Systems like SWIFT GPI are a direct response, designed to counter the cost and speed advantages of these new digital rails. And BRICS Pay? It's set to become a vital, resilient, parallel track. It won't fully replace the dollar, but it will provide the essential infrastructure for a world that wants to trade more in local currencies, free from the threat of unilateral financial punishment. Ultimately, the winner of this currency war won't be the system that completely dominates. It will be the system that offers the most safety, speed, and sovereignty to its users. The fact that we now have two competing global financial highways means the days of one country holding the only key to the toll booth are finally numbered. So I want to ask you, do you believe the US dollar can maintain its global dominance when the world's fastest-growing economies are actively building a parallel system to avoid it? And what do you think will be the next major currency to challenge the dollar's throne? Let me know your thoughts on this huge global financial shift in the comments below. If you found this breakdown of the new currency war engaging, please hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell to keep mapping the complex forces that shape our world. Thanks for watching, and always look closely at where your money is flowing.